You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.
I did work at the newspaper, in fact, one of the largest newspapers in the state, the South Bend Tribune. I did work there for about 5 years. So I have a lot of inside knowledge on the media. So that's what we're going to go ahead and talk about. You guys, everyone should have something called a guide to media success in front of them. It should be a 3-page paper.
You're supposed to tell us we can sit down now.
Nah, we're not there yet. We're not sitting yet. Quit being lazy.
You're going to get the civil disobedience.
I swear, if you make me do jumping jacks, I'm leaving.
Right. Actually, let's go ahead. Everybody who has a positive view of the media, please have a seat.
Wait, what? What is that?
Positive view of the media, have a seat. If you have a positive view of the media, please sit down. You just want to sit down.
75% right.
So everybody look around here and view this. Now look around and view this.
I worked in the media too, so.
So we have a negative view of the media within this room itself. So everyone can have a seat. I just want to prove one thing. There is a general negative view of the media. There is a general negative view, not just within this room, but within the party as a whole. I'm here today to tell you you're wrong and how to change that. The negative view of the media isn't the media's fault. It's our fault. I mean that. Before you even get started in your campaign, you have to know you can't win without the media. That is your single greatest resource to reaching the voter. Your single greatest resource. You can't do it if you don't have a plan. If you don't plan how to succeed with the media, you can't reach those voters. You're going to turn the media off. If the media is turned off from you, why are they going to give you positive coverage? Why would they give you any coverage? They're a business. They need to make money. If you're bashing them, making them look bad, costing them subscribers, they are not going to cover you. You got to keep this in mind when you're going talking to people too, okay? Before you even begin, you have to develop a consistent message. Consistent message. What does that mean? Does that mean just say the same thing over and over? Media is bad, media is bad, media is bad. No, that's not what that means. What that means is a consistent message that will sell. Branding. You have to brand. Jerry talked about marketing. Your whole campaign is marketing. It's all marketing. That's all it is. Your campaign itself is a business. And you have to deal with other businesses. Business here, we're talking about the media. All right? You have to brand. You have to stick out. If you're running campaign advertisements and they just blend into the background, or you're running them at the wrong time of the day, you're saying the wrong things, you're not consistent, you're not building trust, nobody's going to remember you. Or they're going to remember you for the wrong reasons. Think about the advertisements you remember. They have catchy jingles. Right? Maybe they're in the newspaper and then they got a radio advertisement telling you to look in the Sunday newspaper. Look in the Sunday circulars. Look in the Sunday circulars. What do you do on Sundays? You go to the circulars and you find that ad. You think that's by accident? They tell you to go to the Sunday circulars? No. It's designed. It's all designed. You have to treat your campaign like it is a business if you want to win. If you don't do that, you will not win. You will not have success. And let's face it, as libertarians, most of us know how the economy works. That's what our whole economic platform is on, is a knowledge of the economy, the knowledge of the free markets. Use that knowledge of the free markets to your advantage now. Now you market, now you sell. All right? You have to understand the economics of the media. So on this first page, we go into that. I talk about supply and demand a little bit. You guys should know what supply and demand is. You should know that. I'm not even going to get into that. You should know. If you don't know, you might be in the wrong party. I'm not sure. But let's take a look at what newspapers have to account for. This is stuff a lot of you guys don't even consider. Newspapers, price of employees, the price for oil. How many of you knew the newspapers had to account for the price of oil? You realize that newspapers, the paper itself is oil-based? The ink is oil-based? As the price of oil goes up, the price of the print goes up. If they start jacking up the price on their subscribers, they're going to lose subscribers. They got to jack up the price somewhere, or they got to cut employees. Why do you think there's not those investigative reporters anymore? They were putting out 1 report a month, 2 reports a month. You can't afford to have somebody on when the price of oil is that high. It's not the media that doesn't care anymore. That's not the point. A lot of us in the Libertarian Party have taken that approach. They're not doing their jobs. They're not doing the investigative reporting. They can't afford to do the investigative reporting, and we have to keep that in mind. Okay? We have to start developing a positive view of the media before the media will develop a positive view of us. And we can't get the people to have a positive view of us if we can't get the media to have a positive view of us. Okay? So this whole cycle starts with us. We have to have a positive view first. We have to start it. Newspapers have to account for the ink, the paper, price of delivery, price of advertising. They've got to advertise what they have. The price of technologies. They got to keep up with all sorts of technologies, with the computers. They got to keep up with their vans, whether or not their contracts with the Associated Press, with Reuters, all that kind of stuff. The Associated Press wires, they got wires that come in. It's a complicated system. They have to account for all of that in their budgets. So you need to consider that. You can't expect them to just cover you if you're not going to give them any money. They have to get an income, or they're not going to have a business anymore. TV. They have to account for employees, technologies, news vans. This is something we don't consider very often. News vans and the gas to drive those vans. They have. How many of you guys have local news stations that have helicopters? You can raise your hands because almost every one of you guys have a TV station that has a helicopter. That helicopter is not cheap. It's expensive. All right. Then they have their contracts with the big networks. You guys realize that the local TV stations actually pay those big networks in order to have those contracts? They don't get paid, they pay them. That's how they get those big name TV shows, which draws in advertisements from the local businesses. Okay? Radio is going to be your cheapest option because look, it doesn't really have a whole lot to take into account for. It's got price of technologies, price of contracts for news reports, and price of employees. That's about it for radio, honestly. That's why radio advertising is going to be your cheapest. It's going to be your cheapest right there. But you got to be careful with that one. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So what do you have to have? What is your goal with media advertising? What's the goal?
Man buy stuff.
What?
Man buy stuff. That's what I always everything I've been told is when you're trying to generate immediate attention, we always see dog bites man kind of thing, and you want something controversial, man buy stuff.
I would say no.
Okay.
No. That's not your goal. If you're looking for something controversial, you're not going to be a very good candidate. For what you do, that might be a good idea.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But for candidates, no. As a candidate, you don't want to be controversial like that. Especially as a third-party candidate. If a third-party candidate starts going controversial, they're a crazy loon. The whole party's labeled as crazy loons. Goodbye, end of discussion. You're relegated. You're no longer important. You've just been kicked out the door. You're no longer even getting 1% anymore. Goodbye. So what you do is that may be fine. The candidates cannot do that. Trust has to be the goal. Trust. How do you get people to trust you? You start with being consistent. You have to have that brand, that branded message. And it has to be something that's going to stick in the voter's mind. Something they're going to remember. And every time they think of it, maybe they hear a theme song, and every time they think of that theme song, they think of you. Because they've heard it on the radio so often that every time that's playing on the radio commercial, your voice is over that song. Something like that. Consistent. The message has to be the same. Consistency builds familiarity. Familiarity builds trust, and through trust, we get our support. Nobody's ever going to support a candidate they don't trust, especially not from a third party. They might from the Republicans and Democrats because they support those parties.
Right.
They trust those parties because their parents trusted those parties. Their parents didn't trust us. Their parents didn't know us. We're still new. So we have to build that trust. All right? We are here now. We have to build that trust. Not just for today, but for tomorrow as well. It starts today. So let's go into the different types of advertising options that we have here. With newspaper advertising, some basic business business marketing skills here. Okay? When you advertise in the newspaper, you need to have the same ad in the same location at least once a week for at least a month. Newspaper advertising is long-term advertising. You're not trying to get somebody to vote for you today. You're not going to run this ad the week before the election and get results. Not going to happen. You need to start running your newspaper ads 3 months before the elections. If you don't do that, don't even run a newspaper ad. Okay? You need to run that ad consistently. That's part of the consistency. You need to plan your budget accordingly and contact the newspaper to see if you can get some long-term discounts. Call them up. Hey, look, I'm going to be advertising with you guys for 3 months. I'm going to do it once or twice a week. I want it in this section. Tell them what section you want it in too. Hey, I see that all of your political reports, they usually run Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and they're usually in the local section. I want my ad to run Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the local section for 3 months. Every day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't want the other days because there's no political stories those days. People pick up on that. People look in that. They're looking for their political stuff here. That's where they're looking for political stuff. If they're looking for a political ad, that's where they're going to look for that political ad as well. You need to be specific. Talk to them. They'll accommodate when they're getting money. They need that money. Now I want you, does anybody know what day the busiest day is for newspaper? Sunday. I got a couple stats here from the U.S. Audit Bureau of Circulation as of March 31st. But the Indianapolis Star has daily readership of 176,000. On Sunday, they got 272,000. Okay. I listed several other newspapers in the state of Indiana. I even listed on this sheet the percentage increase on the Sunday. But does that mean that advertising on Sunday is better than advertising on, say, a Wednesday? Anybody know the answer to that one?
Not a cost one. Political stories on Wednesday, right?
Right. It's not necessarily better. Why would it not be better? Because on Sunday, what are people doing? People are looking for the ads. They're not reading. People don't read the stories on Sundays. Nobody reads the stories on Sundays. They buy the Sunday paper for the ads.
And the comments.
And they're not looking for a political ad on Sunday. They're looking for the coupons. Do not advertise your political. Do not advertise for politics on Sundays. Ever. Period. I mean that. Do not run a political ad on a Sunday. It's doomed to failure. Also, keep in mind that large ads and color ads are not proven to be more effective. There's no proof. And I'm coming from a newspaper where we pushed the large ads and the color ads. We pushed it big time. But I'm telling you, there's no proof that they're more effective. They're not more effective. They're equally as effective. It's a good way to make more money. Hey, you give us a little bit of color in this advertisement, and we'll pay you more money. That's what the business says to the newspaper. We're like, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. So when we start advertising, hey, we'll do your ad in color, pay us more money, pay us more money. But there's no more money for them. They don't know that, though. Most small businesses don't actually take the time to consider that or to learn that. But really, there's no more money in that. Why do you think you see so many businesses advertising in black and white? Still. It's why. There's no more money in a color ad. No more support, no more viewership, nothing. Whatever you do, don't change a successful ad. If your ad is getting you support, if your newspaper advertisement is getting people going to your website, if it is getting people donating to your campaign or calling your campaign headquarters, don't change that ad. Keep running that ad because that ad is working. But if after a month you haven't gotten any kind of increase, you might want to consider looking at your ad and going, what am I doing wrong here? What am I missing in the ad? Is my branding correct? Have it been running on the right days? Do your research too. See what days the political stories are running. And also, do your research on who your population is. What is your target audience? What are the demographics? You need to know all this. If you don't know it, you're doomed to failure. This is, like I said, you're running a business here. This is a business. It's a private business is what it is. That's what you're running. So you need to keep that in mind. You need to run your campaign like it's a business. If you do that, you will be successful. Television advertising is your absolutely most expensive form of advertisement. I would advise against running a television ad unless you're in a high-profile race. If you are in a high-profile race, you need to make sure that you don't rush the TV ad. You need to make sure it is done extremely well. Because you're paying so much money for it, it has to work. It cannot fail. Absolutely cannot fail. You're paying too much money for failure. Don't run a TV ad during the daytime soaps. I'm serious on this. I've seen local politicians run their ads in the daytime soaps. You're not going to get any more voters. I'm sorry, but your political target audience is not going to watch TV during the middle of the day watching daytime soaps. Run your ads during the evening news. And don't run it during 12 o'clock, midnight, whatever, okay? Don't run it at that time either. Make sure you specify what time you want your ad run. Run it during the evening news, during the evening programming. That's where your target audience is going to be watching TV. You have to maximize your money, yes?
So like 5 to 8 p.m. kind of thing?
You need to know your demographics. Your evening news could be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock news, could be a 10 o'clock news or an 11 o'clock news. I would say know your demographics. You can request from the TV stations their viewership ratings, find out what the ratings are. Kind of watch the news stations too. Find out what time are they running most of their political stories. Are they running they might even be running their political stories in the morning. If they are, run your political ads in the morning too.
And I will say when Bill Levin, for instance, if you're familiar with Bill Levin, he's not your traditional candidate, and he wasn't going to work on the evening news. So he went to cable and advertised during The Daily Show and Tosh.0, which are their two, the Comedy Central's top 2 highest rated, and you acknowledge that you like Tosh.0 and you're Bill Levin's target audience. So, I mean, you have to know your audience when you're doing television, but again, television's very expensive, and I mean, there's a cost to produce the ad too, which was $3,500.
Do you know what those cost him, out of curiosity?
$3,500. I think he had an in-kind because he's friends with Blair. So
just for how many ads?
But Ed's
That was to create the ad.
to create the ads, and then he spent $1,200 on the advertisements on Comedy Central. Ed Coleman was $3,500 for a 30-second spot for production, and then ran during Lifetime, ESPN, Colts games, things like that. So
Absolutely. Know your target audience.
Southside, hard blue collar, white male audience. So we advertise during ESPN and Sports Center and Colts games.
On cable.
On cable.
Only in that district.
In that district, you have a better chance of micro-targeting with cable, which is usually cheaper than broadcast.
Right.
So
It is, too. That's all true. And that's why I said know your demographics, too. It's going to take time. TV advertising is not something you rush into. You have to take your time to do the research. And I can't tell you this is a certain strategy is going to work for everybody. Cable TV works for some regions. It might not work in other regions. You have to know the demographics. And that's why I said get the TV ratings. Know what the ratings are for your area. And get the ratings for your specific area. If you've got 5% of the TV audience watching cable in your area, you're not going to advertise on cable. But if 85% of your audience is watching cable in your area, then cable is where you need to advertise. You need to watch the demographics. With TV advertising, you need to utilize sounds, sights, and the message. Your message needs to be concise, catchy, and it needs to kind of push an emotional response. Okay? And you utilize the sights and the sounds to help push that emotional response. You might use a song. Maybe you're trying to get soldiers. Maybe you're trying to get the veteran vote. Well, you're probably going to use an American flag. You're probably going to use some sort of American-themed song. If you're trying to get young people, you're going to use maybe some younger, more hip music. You got to know who you're trying to target with the ad. That's another problem too. Is you're not going to create one ad and expect it to target every single individual. Not going to happen. You need to use that advertisement and target it towards an individual group of people. So you got to be careful with TV advertising because it can be tricky. And then you need to find out who is your target audience and where are you going to run that. What TV show are you going to run it in? If your target audience is old people, I mean, no offense here, but you might want to run it during the daytime soaps.
The Golden Girls.
You might want, exactly. If your target audience is people over 70 years old, that would be a perfect time to run it. If you're looking at college-age students, you're going to want to run something on Comedy Central. So you need to know what your target audience is. With radio advertisement, you need to choose your radio stations carefully. You're probably not going to want to target a jazz station because jazz stations probably don't get very many listeners. So be careful on what kind of stations you're targeting. Again, know your demographics and know your target audience. You want to make sure as well that you are kind of getting the ratings for the radio stations as well. You can get those ratings as well. Contact the radio stations, find out what their listenership is, how many people listen to their shows, and try to gauge, do they have political talk shows? If they have a political talk show, maybe they got 5,000 people listening to that talk show, and you're in a region where, I think Jerry said 16,000 people live in his district. He's got 16,000 people living in his district, let's say 5,000 of them are listening to a particular radio talk show. He should advertise during that talk show. That's a big chunk of the population right there. If you got 5,000 people listening to that talk show in Indianapolis, that's a big difference. You probably don't want to advertise during that. So you need to know what your demographics are. Again, that's very, very important. It's all about marketing, and you have to market very carefully. So you have to have a very business mindset when coming into this. Utilize sound bites, and again, use the branded message when you do your radio advertising. That branded message is so important, okay? If you don't have the branded message, there's no consistency. And the branded message could just be maybe a catch line at the end of every one of your advertisements. It could be a catch line you put on your newspaper advertisements, and then you put it at the end of your radio advertisements, you put it at the end of your TV advertisements, whatever. If you have that same catch line or something, people start to remember you by that catch line now. You know? You have to have some sort of branding. You have to stick out in the voter's mind. If you don't stick out, you're never going to get their attention. If you don't get their attention, you're never going to get their vote. So which one is the best choice between those three? I really can't tell you. Newspapers provide coverage, but there's no guarantee anybody's ever going to watch your ad. Do use the press releases, though, and advertise. You want to do both. Jerry talked quickly about how he wasn't getting any kind of media coverage. Then he started to advertise, and all of a sudden they're coming to him. That happens a lot. Like I said, they are a business, and they're not going to give you the time of day if you're not giving them the time of day. You have to treat them like a business. You have to treat them with respect. All right? If I'm running a business and I completely ignore this business over here, why would I expect them to ever in turn come to me for anything? I wouldn't. I have to go to them if I want them to come to me. It's the same thing with the campaign. Radio stations will report news based off of newspapers a lot. I don't know if you guys notice that a lot or not, but usually a new radio station will actually have a specific newspaper that they might reference news stories off of. They might be affiliated with that. Or sometimes it's a big corporation that owns 3 or 4 radio stations, 1 newspaper, maybe a TV station here. You got to consider all that stuff. Your newspaper press release that you push into that newspaper through the advertising can now start to reach even more people through the radio, because now maybe the radio station starts reading that very same press release. Okay? That's why the newspaper is so important. And the newspaper and radio, if you combine those two and you run them back to back, you run that newspaper ad and you're telling them on the radio commercial, look for my ad in the Tuesday Circular, the Tuesday paper, in the local section on page 5 or something like that. People are going to turn there, they're going to get your address. They might, maybe each week you change the ad just a little bit and tell them what event you're going to be attending that week. But at least they know where to find it. If you tell them where to find the events you're going to be attending every week in that radio advertisement. And every Tuesday they go to the newspaper, they open it up on that page and they find your ad and they know what events to go to if they want to see you. Smart idea. TV stations are also aligned with newspapers to bring dual coverage a lot of times. Also, I want you to keep in mind, TV stations, it's going to be really hard to get a news coverage with a TV station for a candidate from the Libertarian Party. The reason is, again, the advertising. It's so expensive to do any sort of advertising with TV that they're not going to give you the short amount of time they have in their half-hour news segments if they're not getting money from you. And a lot of us, let's face it, just don't raise that kind of money to be able to advertise with them. So again, unless you're kind of a high-profile race, you might just have to kind of forget about the TV advertisements unless you can raise enough money. So you need to have a clear idea of what you want to do before you even get into the advertisement part. Find a plan and plan carefully as well. Then I want you guys to keep in mind too, radio talk shows are a great resource. They're free, and these people love to talk politics. Also, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, you might know more about this, but I believe that if they have a Republican or Democrat opponent on, they have to allow whoever that person's opponent is on as well.
I think it's definitely at the federal level. I don't know if there's a state law, but they don't know that either. So I promise you, I worked at a talk station for 5 or 6 years. If you call up and say, well, you have the Republican and Democrat on, you have to have me on too. It's a rule. And they'll go, is it? Yeah. Okay, I'll come on then. Well, come on next week. And try to get in the 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning hour. That's drive time. You want to be on in the 7 to 8 hour, preferably at 7:35. Always shoot for a 7:35 booking. Blogs and talk radio are 2 great ways to get earned media.
And then I want you guys to know that when you get that kind of stuff, advertise it. Tell people on Facebook. Tell people on Twitter. Tell people in your blog. Put it on your website. I'm going to be on the talk radio show at this time. Tune in and listen. Get people tuned in. Okay? The more you can get your followers to tune into that radio show, the more often they're going to have you on that radio show. Because the more listeners they have, the more they can charge for advertisements. Again, business aspects, guys. Business aspects. Make sure that with the advertisements, you're also pushing press releases. The press releases must be factual. They must include sound bites, and they must be concise. Don't send out a 5-page press release. Nobody is going to read it. They're going to delete it. It won't make it to the paper. They won't give you a call. Don't do it. Don't put in there a bunch of opinions. Stick to the facts. And if you're going to give an opinion, put it in quotes and put it as your quote. Don't start throwing out opinions as facts. They know better. They have the facts in front of them. They're getting the facts from other sources. Don't do that. They will throw it away. They will never give you consideration again. You will never get a phone call from them at all.
One thing to add to that is make sure you don't send a press release as an attachment. Send it in line as the message, because there are a lot of news services that don't allow attachments to come in. And that goes for television, that goes for radio, and that goes for press.
It's a brilliant point right there. Spam filters do cut out a lot of attachments, especially if you're sending from like a Yahoo or Gmail account.
Yep.
It will cut out that attachment. He's absolutely right. Send it in the body of the email. Do not send it as an attachment.
And there's
if you
one
do,
more
it won't
thing.
make it through.
If you can find out the safe filter word for the major news source in the state, like in Georgia, for example, there's Morris : safe, means that it will go through to every email address that you're sending it to, because they use that same filter. If it's not in there, they just toss it in the spam.
Also, make sure your subject's good. Because when I worked at a news station, I'd get 200 emails a day, and I'd check it by looking at my subject. And if I know the candidate, then I will read it. But if I don't know the candidate, I'll just read the subject, and that's really the way you scan it. So I get a ton of stuff.
Right. From working at the newspaper, I worked in the IT department. I saw how many emails came in. For a typical reporter, you're talking close to 500 to 600 emails per day. They don't have time to open every one and read it through. So like I said, if it's long, they're just going to delete it. They're not even going to read it. They don't have time. Okay? Please be considerate of their time, because they're usually not allowed to work overtime. They're not going to get paid for overtime. You have to understand it's a business. Okay? It is a public service, but it's also a business. And you have to consider the business aspects of it if you want them to take you seriously at all. Keep your press releases on topic and focus on the important issues. I have seen press releases from people go out, and for some reason, I don't know why, but I get attached to a lot of press releases from a lot of different political organizations, a lot of different political candidates, and they're just trash. They start on one topic, and next thing you know, they're on another topic, and then they're on another topic, and then they back to that first topic, and it's like, what are you talking about? And that's never going to go anywhere. Or you're talking about an issue that is important to like 1% of the population of your target audience. Really? You got to know your demographics. If you don't know your demographics, you might as well not even run. You have to know your demographics. If you don't know your demographics, you're not going to do yourself any favors at all. Include your contact information at the bottom of your press release. That should be phone number, your name, your email address, and make sure that you proofread your press releases. Proper grammar, proper punctuation. Don't screw up the grammar and punctuation. Don't make it look like a fourth grader sent the email. Don't send out a press release that doesn't have any breaks for paragraphs, that's not formatted properly. Don't do that.
And I think it's important to spend, if you're going to send out a lot of press releases, get something like Constant Contact or MailChimp and put it in a format, because there's nothing like, I don't know, when I get press releases from an organization or a candidate and it was in plain text, it just didn't look official. You know, there's something about having it in that template from an email service that has more weight behind it.
Absolutely. You should have some sort of, and that's nothing, be consistent with your template too. Don't be changing your template up all the time. Be consistent with that template. That does build familiarity, which builds trust. Not necessarily with the person reading the article once it's in the newspaper, but with the reporter. And if you want the people to be able to trust you, you need the reporter to be able to trust you. So you got to build that trust with the reporter too.
What is this template thing you're talking about?
A template, basically what it is it's a preset design that you use.
Like a letterhead type of thing?
Right, like a letterhead.
Do you get the Liberty Beacon from the LPIN, or if you get email newsletters that with graphics? Something with graphics is what I mean.
Okay.
So I'll show you later.
Just do a Word document that's got the graphics in it. And
The best way to do it is MailChimp is a email server that's free. MailChimp. Yep.
Like a chimpanzee.
And I like Constant Contact.
If it's possible, have a media outreach organizer or campaign manager or somebody send out the press release for you. Don't make it look like it's coming directly from the candidate if possible. It's not always possible, especially with some of the local campaigns, and the reporters won't hold that against you. But if you're running for U.S. House or U.S. Senate and you don't have a campaign manager or a media outreach organizer, and you, the candidate, are sending the press release out, they're going to look at it and go, you must not have a very well organized campaign. And they're not going to take you seriously. Okay? And you need to keep in mind that this business, the readership is only going to take seriously the people who are serious. You have to present yourself as a serious person if you want the media to even push you out there. Because they're not going to waste their time on somebody who isn't serious. Because that's not going to help them with their readership numbers. That's not going to help them with their advertisement. That's not going to help them stay in business. Okay? Present yourself as a serious candidate if you want to be taken seriously. With all of this, the website, you have to run a website. I know some people don't want to run a website. I'm telling you, you have to. Now, obviously, you can run for office without one. You can. But if you even want a legitimate shot at getting more than 2%, you need to have a website. And Jerry had a great website up. I'm going to encourage you to go to his website. It looked like it was actually set up very well. There are a couple of things I do want to suggest that you make sure you have in that website. One, you need to have a link to your bank account, to the bank account for your campaign. Allow people to donate to your campaign through that website. Make sure as well that they're filling out the form that has their name and their email address, their phone number, where they work as well. And then you can have that sent to a database or to your email, and you can keep track of your donations online that way. Okay? Make sure that you're doing that though, and make sure you have an email address strictly for your campaign, so that your campaign emails don't get mixed in with your personal emails. Because then you start getting mixed up and confused, and that creates a big problem. Like I said, if possible, please have your website done professionally, and also quote and reference any articles about you that are positive, any positive articles about you. Don't be listening to any negative articles about you. That's not a very good way to get elected.
And never read the comments on a newspaper website.
Yes.
If your name is ever mentioned in the Indianapolis Star, do not go read the comments, because it will just make you mad and it will not help you whatsoever.
And don't respond to the comments.
Ever.
Don't respond to the comments either.
No.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Because if you respond to the comments, you're going to get drawn into a debate, and somebody's going to hold that against you. Don't do that. Don't do that. If somebody else wants to get into a debate, fine, but don't do that as a candidate.
You just say piss off, does it work?
You can try that, but I don't know if
I
that's
have.
going to look very good. Again, on your website, utilize that same branding. Whatever branding you are using on all of your other advertisements, put it on your website. I can't stress it. Put it on your website. Just that branding builds the familiarity. It helps you build that trust. Okay, that is such a big deal. That is important if you want to get their votes. And then make sure that you get the money. I haven't heard this mentioned. I mean, I've heard some of Jerry's talk about if he could have it over again, he would have pushed for more money. I'm going to tell you now, if somebody votes for you, let me restart. If somebody donates to you, they are going to vote for you. Once they give you, even if it's just $5, if they give you $5, they have an emotional attachment to you now. They have an emotional attachment to you. They have built, and my professional field right now is psychology. Trust me, I know the brain, I know how it works. And I actually have read studies that show this. If they get that $5 from you, they have that emotional attachment from you, even if it's just $5. If you can get 100, get 100. But if you can get just 5, get 5. They will have that emotional attachment. They are going to vote for you. And once they donate to you, it's more easy to get them involved too. They donate to you, they have that emotional attachment. Now they're going to be willing to go door to door for you because they already feel obligated to help you. They've already donated. Get them to donate first. The sooner you can get them to donate, the better you're going to be. The more volunteers you're going to have, the more votes you're going to get. I promise you. Get them to donate. If you can get them to donate today, get somebody to donate to your campaign today. You go home today and you have your campaign already set up. You've already filed the paperwork and you get somebody to donate to you today. Come election day, they're going to vote for you. Come the time that you've gone through and filed all the paperwork and starting to go door to door, they're going to be right there next to you going door to door with you. They're going to volunteer their time. They're going to set up organizations to help you. They're going to help you set up some sort of event. They're going to help you set up some fundraising stuff because they're already obligated to you. Get them to donate today if possible. The sooner they donate, the better. Awesome. Utilize your social media. If you have a newspaper article written about you that is positive, list it on Facebook. Post it on Facebook. Post it on Twitter. And then link your Facebook page to your website. Create a candidate page if you have to on Facebook. Link your Twitter page to your website. Get it all linked together. Get everybody in it together, okay? You have so many different ways to reach out to people. There's no excuse for not doing it. And most of it's free. And the website might not be free, but it's pretty easy to do. And Chris, do you still have somebody available to help people get websites set up?
Yeah, well, we have WordPress on our website, and we can set up a simple WordPress website for people. I want to make it clear, I'm not going to help run your website. I will help you set up a basic web page that you can then have access to and use if you don't have graphic and web capabilities. You know, so that's a very simple service because obviously time is limited. But Facebook is the new cafe. That's where people go to talk to each other. Chard Reed spent like $100 in 2010 when he ran for Congress, and in 5 days he added 500 people to they liked his Facebook website. And that's the foundation of when he's running this second time. Rebecca, we ran, I think, a week-long Facebook advertisement for her, 1,500 people within like a week doing Facebook advertisements. It's very difficult for parties to have those kind of results because we're a cult of personality society in some ways. So people will like a political figure that they know something about. So Facebook advertisements, I think, are a great way to drive traffic to what you're talking about.
They really are.
They're very cheap.
They are cheap.
Very cheap.
And I believe,
Target the advertising.
right, I believe that, in fact, they can target down for people who like politics.
You could
all kinds of
you could advertise
Right.
to people who are just fans of the LPIN Facebook page, which you all should like.
I don't advise you to advertise to be fans of the LPIN web
Right.
Page.
That's yeah.
Because they're probably going to vote for you anyways if they're in your district. Don't advertise to them. So I would, is there an exclusion?
Yes,
Like they
you
can
can exclude certain people.
Yep.
so that
Okay,
they
so
don't-
I would even exclude LPIN members that you know for sure are going to vote for you regardless, and target your ads towards maybe people who list themselves as independent voters on Facebook. Maybe target your ads towards people who.
Voted for Obama, no way.
I wouldn't necessarily do that, but I would target, like if you're looking at college students, if you have a lot of college students in your district, target them towards college students, whatever your target.
Just depends on what your message is. I mean,
Right.
with Rebecca, for instance, we targeted more towards Tea Partiers in 2010. And our advertising strategy was Facebook, and we wanted to own one space. So we chose the internet because it's more cost effective. You get better analytics. You can see where you're targeting. We didn't touch newspaper or TV. We did some radio and political talk stations and female-oriented radio stations because she was the only female in the race. So you can, and we targeted towards, on Facebook and Google, women's groups, Tea Partiers, constitutionalists. So it really, you have to know your message, you have to know who you are, and you have to know how you're marketing yourself before you get to any of these stages where you're press releasing and talking, to media. So
That goes right back to the first thing I said. Before you begin to advertise, develop a consistent message. You need to, and develop a plan. You need to have that plan and that message developed before you ever start anything. Before I step away now, because we're about done with this, get on with the roundtable discussions here, I want to leave you with this. Good relationships equal positive results. And I put some statistics down here for you guys. According to the White House Office of Consumer Affairs, I know, I hear people talking about this day. I know.
could you put your torches away, please?
Right. But this is a legitimate statistic. This is not the White House telling us anything. This is a legitimate statistic. 13% of dissatisfied persons will tell more than 20 people, and on an average, dissatisfied persons tell 10. So if I go and I make Ron here mad, Ron's probably going to go and tell at least 10 people.
50. Easy.
Right. Ron will go and tell 50. Ron will post up, and get this, with Facebook, it's not even 10 people.
He bought an ad.
Listen, how many friends do you have? You got like, what, 400, 500?
Yeah, about 400.
Okay. So now if I get into a fight with Ron's going to post something nasty about me, 400 people are going to see it. He's not telling 10 people. He's telling 400 people how bad I am. So you need to keep that in mind. Don't get into a fight with anybody.
And by the way, he's the reason I'm on Facebook. I wasn't going to get on
I would
until
take
I ran
full
for
credit for
office,
that.
and he absolutely told me,
Or
you
blame.
have to do
blame.
this. And I said, I don't want to be another cackling hen like everybody else. 2 weeks later, I was the king of the cackling. I was the cackling rooster. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
you.
You're welcome
Yeah.
very much. That's the biggest time waster of your
Yes,
life.
thank
isn't
you.
it?
Yes, thank you very much.
There was an article about Facebook power users out last week. I think 20% of Facebook users are considered power users because they post more than like 6 times a day. And 80% of what they post is, guess?
About me.
Politics.
Right.
Number one use of power users on Facebook is politics.
Keep in mind, the happy person will only tell about 3 people. So if I make a person happy, they're only going to tell about 3 people on average, if they tell anybody at all. It's more important not to turn people off than it is to make people happy. Okay? So,
I wish that were a joke.
so honestly, this is the point I'm going to make here.
There's your branding.
Do not get into any type of debate with the public, okay? Don't do it. Let them have their opinions. Respect their opinions. Hear them out and have empathy for them. Try to understand where they're coming from, because if they're having their opinions, it's probably not just a wild, out of left field opinion. They're probably not just saying something without having thought it through. Now, Now, wait a second now. It may not make sense to you. It may not make sense to me. We may disagree with it. But they have their reasons for having that opinion. And usually, I was talking with Ron earlier, for instance, how many people hate CEOs? A lot of people. A lot of people hate CEOs. Why do people hate CEOs so much? Well, let's think about it. You got a CEO who's making hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, and you have all these people unemployed and losing their jobs. Now, do people think about everybody in the world when they focus on their family member losing their job? No. What they're focused on is, how can the CEO make $350,000 a year and he can't even afford to pay you $30,000? Because he's got 300 employees, he'd have to pay $30,000. Then he wouldn't have any money. In fact, he'd owe money. That's why. But when you're focused on that, that's what you're seeing. You're angry because your family member is hurt. That's an emotional response. And when we talk to the public, we have to consider their emotional responses. Humans are not robots. And we can't treat them like robots. We have to consider their emotions. We have to consider their emotional needs and their emotional responses to tragedies that happen in their life. Whether the tragedy is real or perceived. Whether the person was wrong or not. That person may have deserved to get fired. Maybe that person stole $100. We don't know. But that's not our job to judge that person. And that's not our job to say that. Our job as candidates is to win votes. Okay? Win votes and win people over to the party. And we can't do that if we act like robots and we push people off. We try to tell people they're the ones who are wrong all the time. Now, we can talk about personal responsibility, but I think we have to do it in an empathetic way. And that's the key. We have to do it with empathy. According to a Harris Customer Service Impact Report, 86% of consumers quit doing business with a company because of a bad customer experience. Now remember, I said you guys are running, not campaigns, you guys are running businesses. Your campaign is a business. Well, 86% of people will quit doing business with a company because of a bad customer service experience. That means if they have a bad customer service experience with you, if they have a bad experience with you as a candidate, 86% of them will turn away from you. 86% will never even come back to you. They won't consider it. And they're probably going to label the whole party because they don't really know the party very well. So keep in mind, you're representing a young party that's trying to grow here. You're not just representing yourself. 60% of persons will pay more money for a positive experience. The more positive the experience they have when they talk with you, the more likely they are to donate to you. That's what we can take from that. That's exactly what we can take from that. The more positive their experience with you, the more likely they are to donate to you. And the more likely they are to donate more money to you. They may not go and tell a whole bunch of people, but if they like you and they respect you, and then you turn around and go, I need some money to run my campaign, they're more likely to give you that money. You have to give them a positive experience. And please, before I go, I just want to make sure that we all understand this. Utilize positive business techniques while you are running your campaign. Run it like a business. I know I've said that numerous times. I'm going to say it one more time. Run it like a business. With that said, any questions?
There's one thing I wanted to bring up in my presentation I forgot. Since I was 9 years old, sold newspapers, greeting cards, seeds, the back of comic books, win prizes selling American greeting cards and seeds. And that's how I approached it, going door to door. That I was selling something again. And this is what I was selling was myself. Or shoes or whatever. Approach it like that. Very simple.
That is stuff.
Thank you.